it just went too far. And I don't like seeing the fact that the sentiments towards immigration have changed almost 180.
The humiliation begins. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Mark Carney's trade deal falling apart, Donald Trump, and now people are bringing up clips of both Mark Carney and Francois-Philippe Champagne saying that they wouldn't cave on the DST, and well, they caved on the DST. We've got Danielle Smith absolutely blasting the Liberals over their reckless immigration, and with that, we've got a guy trying to stifle and sabotage Alberta's bid for separation. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we've got BC Ferries is now prohibiting damaged electric vehicles from sailing on board its vessels due to Transport Canada's regulation preventing them from being transported. So if you have a damaged electric vehicle on Vancouver Island, you can't get it off the island. It has to be fixed somewhere on the island before you can get it over. This is crazy. And this is the future they want for Canada, forcing us to drive these vehicles in 10 years. Clearly they have a few issues to iron out. We also got this one from Blacklock's reporters. Feds confirming CERB write-offs. They're not getting that money back. It says the department counted $3.23 billion worth of Canadian emergency response benefits payments to 1,890,000 ineligible Canadians. So almost 2 million people got these CERB benefits and they're not getting the money back. It says there's millions were unrecoverable. They're just gonna poof, watch that money disappear. This is the one instance where it's the people ripping off the government versus the government ripping off the people. I mean, technically it's the people ripping off the people as well, and we've got Mark Carney putting out a tweet here. Tomorrow on Canada Day, your middle class tax cut takes effect, saving you money so you can keep more of what you earn. It's funny how he didn't mention the number as Yukon Strong posts. It's $45 a month. You gave yourself a $16K raise this year. $280 a year for a family of 4. It's not a lot. There's a sliding scale there, maximum of $700, something like that. With that said, Danielle Smith coming out and giving a tax break in Alberta that is double what Mark Carney's maximum amount is, and likely it's about 4 times, 5 times bigger than Mark Carney's tax cut. This is a smart move. She ain't playing around here.
We know costs are rising across Canada and times have been tight. That's why Alberta's government has fast-tracked cutting your taxes when you need it most. Starting July 1st, over 2 million Albertans will pay less income tax on their paychecks. That means over the course of a year, you'll see $750 back in your pocket per taxpayer or $1,500 per family. This is more than $1.2 billion in total tax relief for Albertans this year. This tax cut will help you meet today's challenges and plan for tomorrow. In Alberta, a promise made is a promise kept. This tax cut is your money, back where it belongs.
So the timing of this, she's doing this right at the same time that Mark Carney's giving his piddly little tax cut, and hers is 4 times, 5 times bigger. Is this coincidence? What do you think? We've also got this one coming from Table Salts, talking about the DST here, digital service tax. Federal government revenue is now down $7 billion over 5 years. They're counting on that digital service tax. They're expecting, I believe, $2.7 billion retroactive payments back to 2022, which has been wiped off the map now. So how is Mark Carney going to pay for his budget? That's why he didn't do a budget. He knew that this was a possibility, or there's other things in the works here where he couldn't budget properly. He knew likely he had to give up something and he didn't want to be called on that. Well, now he just looks like a fool and a bad negotiator. As Table Salt is pointing out here, it says we were already short $60 billion per year deficit. Showing the books here, how is Carney going to pay for his $7 billion deficit spending now? Is he going to cut dental care, pharmacare? What's he going to cut? Or as Bob Smith says, print, print, print. Yeah, fire up the old money printer. This is all Carney knows how to be as a central banker. Moving on here, we've got this one from Juno News. We have Keenan Bexty interviewing Danielle Smith. She absolutely blasts the Liberals on their incredibly disruptive immigration policy.
The entire national zeitgeist on immigration has changed.
It has.
When the Fair Deal panel was happening to now, there's completely different opinion on immigration.
Totally true.
And I think maybe, what we've heard from the Alberta government has shifted as well. I think it's fair to say. You know what?
When we started off, I had just gotten elected when the Alberta's Calling campaign had started. And it was important because we'd had a quarter after quarter of outmigration. We were some of the first to get rid of the COVID restrictions. And so we were ready to build again and ready to grow again. And it was looking as well like there was increased enthusiasm to invest in the oil and gas sector. So there was a very good reason why we were doing that Alberta's Calling campaign. We were calling to those who were unemployed Canadians in other parts of the country to come to Alberta. What we didn't anticipate was that the federal government was going to completely let off all controls of all streams of immigration at that time. Temporary foreign workers, asylum seekers, international students. as well as the other immigration streams. I think that 1 year period, instead of a normal amount of immigration and newcomers arriving, which would be about 1% of the population, so maybe around 400,000 people a year, at 1.8 million. And you've seen the result of it. The reason why housing prices have spiked, why food affordability has spiked, why affordability on every front has spiked.
Danielle Smith took a lot of heat for this, saying she wants to bring in more people and raise the population in Alberta, and this was just starting to heat up. As she said there, as part of the Alberta's Calling campaign, she quickly changed policy on that to adapt to the situation. As she mentioned, the Liberals jacking up immigration, bringing in 1.8 million people, not vetting people, then you end up all these terror lords in our country. These people are running rampant, increasing crime in areas. You don't want to bring in more of these people to your communities because you can't vet them from the good ones, and you don't know which is good, which is bad, because the Liberals aren't vetting the people coming into the country. It just starts to affect everything.
Is just because if you have too many people chasing too few jobs, too few homes, and too little employment, you're just going to end up causing problems. So the federal government blew it. It's such a tragedy, because Alberta is probably one of the most welcoming places for newcomers on the entire planet. Our founding story from 1905 was one where we reached out to the world and said, hey, come here and help us build this place. And diaspora after diaspora after diaspora has. And we have one of the most diverse populations here. So people want newcomers. They want them to come here, be Canadian, be Albertan, leave their historic hatreds behind when they leave their home countries.
That's such a key statement there. Leave your historic H word, your ill thoughts towards others from your own country. That's it. I mean, that should be a mandate in Canada. If you come here, you can't bring that. If you bring that and it's found that you're creating that situation, those conflicts in our country, then there should be grounds for deportation. Maybe that doesn't last for decades and decades, but maybe have a probation period where it lasts 2, 3, 4, 5 years, where people can't be bringing their culture wars from their country here and creating problems here. It's a privilege to move from one of those countries that has been overrun by all sorts of corruption, chaos, conflict, all of it, to come to our country where we don't have any of that stuff. We used to not have that stuff. Now we're dealing with massive government corruption, and we don't have conflict with another country, but we have other problems. But it's still a privilege to move here, and people should treat it like that. They should be respectful that they got to move here and not just protest in the street and block our infrastructure and demand all this stuff. When we built this, our grandmothers and grandfathers built this place.
And I think what people are now observing is that it just went too far. And I don't like seeing the fact that the sentiments towards immigration have changed almost 180. I think people want to continue having people who will come here, contribute to the economy, and be able to grow this province. But it's got to be a reasonable level.
What I hear is, I mean, it's, I guess, similar. It's a little different. They want jobs for their children.
Yep.
They want them to be able to go work at the Tim Hortons down the road.
Correct.
Like they did when they were a kid. They want to be able to afford groceries. They want to be able to take their kids to the hospital and go through an emergency line when they're having a problem,
yep,
and be seen within a few hours. And they don't even view that, I think, as, oh, Danielle Smith is not spending enough on healthcare. They think there's too many people in line in front of me.
And I think there's legitimacy to that.
And that's just it. There's no jobs for Canadians anymore. If you're 18 years old, you better get on the internet and figure out how to make money, because there's no jobs at the Tim Hortons. They're all being taken by South Asians who come over here and they're looking for a better life. They were promised something that couldn't be delivered to them by Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney, now Liberals. But now we have too many of these people. We have millions of them that have visas that are expiring, but there's no plan to get them out of the country going back home. What makes it worse is you've got companies taking advantage of these people, paying them lower wages, saying, oh, I had to pay a bit of your salary to the government, and which is just a lie, and then pocketing that money. If they say anything, then they'll get reported, or at least that's the scare tactic that's being used. People are being used by people who have businesses in Canada. It's really just quite sick. This comment section is full of the biggest trolls in here. I can't even read out the comments. They're so vile. There's so many nasty liberal trolls on X here. With that said, the Alberta separation movement is hitting a bit of a speed bump here, as pro-Canadian citizen-driven initiative spearheaded by this guy here, Thomas Lukaszuk, has been officially accepted by Elections Canada, aimed to get a referendum question on Alberta by staying in Canada on the ballot. So what this guy's doing, he's trying to take the Alberta referendum spot because you can only have one referendum at a time. So he's taking it away from the actual Alberta separatists so they can't put their referendum in. He's trying to shut this down, essentially. He's sabotaging the Alberta separation movement. You can see this has been received by the Chief Electoral Office. The fact Alberta separation from Canada is being actively discussed. Since a referendum appears to be imminent anyways, it should be objective and not directed by any special interest groups. Separation will threaten the Canadian as well as the Albertan economy, the personal wealth of Albertans, the personal citizenship rights of Alberta residents, the treaty rights of our First Nations, and have many other serious negative consequences. We believe the majority of Alberta's residents are loyal Canadians opposed to any form of separation. And then it goes on to say, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? So it's written in a way to make Alberta separation seem bad. So jumping over to CBC, they have an article on this. So the Alberta Prosperity Project is the separation movement. This is set up by Mitch Sylvester. The aim of the group is to get 177,000 signatures within 120 days. And as I mentioned earlier, the guy who's trying to sabotage this, Thomas Luczak, a former progressive conservative deputy premier in Alberta, is working to thwart the separatist effort. Luczak, now out of politics, argues that Alberta's rules do not allow for two competing petitions on the same issue. There's only one petition at a time, so mine precludes theirs, he says. On Monday, Elections Canada approved his application to undertake a petition for the province to declare its official policy to remain within Canada. Since Luczak applied before the new rules took effect, he'll need to collect 600,000 signatures, but he says he's confident that enough Albertans would sign their name. Chief Electoral Office Gordon McClure said in a Monday statement that Luczak has 30 days to appoint a chief financial officer for the campaign. Danielle Smith lowered the rules. This guy put it in beforehand, but now he's got this huge barrier. There's no way he's going to collect 600,000 signatures. There's just no way. He has 90 days under the old rules. If you're wondering who this guy is here, this is coming right off of Global's website here. It says former progressive conservative cabinet minister Thomas Luczak has been denied membership into Alberta's United Conservative Party due to past endorsements of the NDP. He tried to join the UCP, denied because of his endorsements of the NDP. That tells you all you need to know. We'll see what happens with this, but separatist referendum vote will get pushed forward eventually here. Next up, we got Table Salt Post in this one. Carney is totally ignoring his caucus and ruling by decree. This lady here, I believe she's a reporter for the Toronto Star. She's just dishing it cold here.
I think it reflects the way this government is running things. You know, this Modi backlash that is happening within the Liberal caucus, if they had discussed this issue ahead of time with the caucus, they would have been able to mitigate so much of the backlash that has happened. The same thing with C5, the Natural Resources Bill. If they had talked to caucus about it before and not briefed them an hour before they tabled it, some of the backlash would not have happened. Or the stakeholders on the border bill. They don't seem to value caucus as a sounding board, and I think this is going to cause more and more problems if they don't realize it soon.
Well, yeah, we've seen that certainly with past prime ministers. Chantal, last word.
Plain and simple that it wasn't in the election platform is because there's no way the math could have at all worked. 5% of military spending, and this is 5% of GDP, so it's not a number. You can grow the economy and make this less a significant spend, is almost a third of all government spending. And there's some of that spending you can't touch. It's transfers to healthcare, it's transfers to people, it's old age security. Yeah. You can't touch this stuff. So the idea that they could cut this much out of the federal government is quite surprising and will be felt if that's the way they're going, or they're just going to add more to the deficit and the debt, and this will be structural deficits that I'm sure Andrew will write lots about.
This is interesting. So yeah, as it says here, turmoil within the Liberal caucus. Carney doesn't respect his people. I'm not surprised by that. He's so arrogant. You can see the way he treats people. I mean, treats Rosemary Barton. Rosemary, look inside yourself. All the reporters, he looks down on everyone. The fact that whenever he's at an event with his wife, he walks in front of her, not beside her. So I'm not really surprised he doesn't respect his caucus. I am surprised that I'm hearing this on CBC. This is hilarious. Table Salt posting this clip. Melanie Jolie, where she gets shooed away. Be gone, fly. With that, we've got Pierre Poilievre coming out saying as recently as 2 days ago, the finance minister insisted the digital service tax would proceed. Then the prime minister put his elbows down and canceled the tax at the 11th hour. The tax is gone for good. In exchange, the prime minister should insist that U.S. immediately rescind softwood lumber tariffs. We need to make gains for our workers in these talks. That's a great point. Mark Carney's not demanding anything. He got nothing from that aside from continuing trade talks. Meanwhile, this is what Carney said just a couple months ago.
That it would be helpful for Canadians to know exactly what you would do when it comes to tariffs. So why are you being so reticent to talk about that?
Because I'm a good negotiator. I have negotiated a number of situations in the past. I know how to manage crises.
Yeah, he's a good negotiator because he says so. Okay, thanks. I don't think he can negotiate his way out of a paper bag. I feel instead that he is way out of his league. He's used to sitting in a boardroom along with so-called elite bankers. Yeah. Meanwhile, Mark Carney getting blasted on American media here. We got Caroline Leavitt dropping a truth bomb here.
Canada says it's now dropping its digital services tax on American tech companies days after President Trump says he's halting all trade talks with Canada. First, what's the president's reaction to this? Can you tell us more about his call with Prime Minister Carney over the weekend? How did he get Carney to drop it? And also, what's the impact on American tech companies given this latest progress as the president says he has been fighting for American tech companies?
It's very simple. Prime Minister Carney in Canada caved to President Trump in the United States of America. And President Trump knows how to negotiate, and he knows that he is governing the best country and the best economy in this world, on this planet. And every country on the planet needs to have good trade relationships with the United States. And it was a mistake for Canada to vow to implement that tax that would have hurt our tech companies here in the United States. The president made his position quite clear to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister called the president last night to let the president know that he would be dropping that tax, which is a big victory for our tech companies and our American workers here at home.
So no matter how the Canadian media wants to spin this, tech companies don't have to pay $2.7 billion now. And while that sounds bad for Canadians, really, these tech companies would just increase the price on us. So this is a win for Canada. It's finally getting rid of one of these draconian laws that the Liberals put in. So the question is now, are we going to get a trade deal? Well, we got the U.S. ambassador who seems to think so.
You say we're back on track. Do you think the two countries still have a hope of meeting that 30-day deadline? Is there still a possibility of a deal? Because it obviously lost a few days.
I've talked to both sides over the weekend. I think both sides are optimistic that they can get to an agreement within that time frame. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. There's always something that can sidetrack it. But they both want to get to an agreement. They've got qualified staffs. We got smart people in the room that are working on this, that they have the capability, the desire, and the will to get there.
You are being very positive about all of this, talking about things being on track. U.S. President said in his interview with Fox News over the weekend that Canada is, quote, very nasty to deal with. How is Canada nasty, Ambassador?
Well, I think Canada, I want to be very, very positive because the relationship is a great relationship.
And these are the words of your president.
No, I know. And we're going to be stronger after this than maybe what we are right now. It's going to be an even stronger relationship.
Is that what Mark Carney campaigned on? I thought he was breaking us apart and he's taking us over to be part of Europe. I thought the relationship is over. Is that what the Liberals signed up for?
What is the president thinking about? Oh, they just slapped a brand new tax on us that we've told them for months is an unfair tax. Oh, by the way, you have 11 out of your 13 provinces who ban American products on their shelves. We haven't banned a single Canadian product in the United States. That's a pretty nasty move, okay? You have a number of your provinces have put in provisions into their procurement process that say, oh, if you're an American company, you can't bid. That's pretty nasty.
But that was in response to the U.S. slapping major tariffs on this country.
Exactly right now.
So responding is nasty? I'm just trying to get to the heart of this, Ambassador.
Where we are today. Okay, I will accept your characterization of potentially putting tariffs in place. Okay, 90 to 95% of the products that we trade are USMCA compliant, which means there are not tariffs on them.
Yes. I mean, I think we can both acknowledge that the road to get there was pretty complicated, but you've talked about...
We simplified some of those, okay?
It's getting pretty spicy there. I mean, when it comes down to it, the dairy supply management seems to be the big topic around the table, and the Liberals just put into law that can't be touched. So this is going to get nastier before it gets better, I think. Got food professor saying Carney plays the tough guy, but whenever Ottawa backs down, Minister Champagne, who delivers the news, carefully distancing Carney from any concession. That is very interesting. That is on point. Champagne taking the heat. So so Mark Carney doesn't look bad. I mean, just look what Mark Carney said on the campaign trail, saying that Pierre Poilievre was kneeling to Donald Trump.
I don't think we can change Donald Trump. I don't think so. Not at this stage. And a person who draws his inspiration from President Trump, like Pierre Poilievre, will kneel down before him, before he stands up to him. He's in sync with President Trump, I've heard, in this province.
I've heard. What a load of crap. We all know that's crap, dude.
Pierre Poilievre is also choosing to be willfully blind to the many and growing threats that face our country.
This coming from the guy whose business partner, ex-business partner, is Xi Jinping, the leader of China. This guy was chosen as one of the U.S. business leaders to go do business with Xi Jinping in China. He drops willfully blind. Is that some sort of tongue-in-cheek comment regarding Sam Cooper's book, Willful Blindness?
He refuses, for some reason, he refuses to get his security clearance. It's 941 days and counting.
We all know that was created to silence the opposition from criticizing the government. It sucks because the average person back here, all these people don't understand that. They just believe what this guy says without looking anything up.
Me 21 days. Wasn't that hard. Wasn't that hard.
So who really kneeled to Donald Trump? It wasn't Pierre Poilievre.